Vidhammer Fantasy.
Welcome back to Vidhammer. I'm Spudlow. This is the first of 4 battle reports where I'll be using the same army list, and instead of just giving you a battle report of what's happening, I'm actually going to tell you my side of the engagement, why I'm doing the things that I do. I'll be using a 2,150 point Skaven list, and in this video we'll be going over a preview game that I played against an opponent using the Orcs and Goblins. Let's first take a look at the army list and see what it is that I'll be playing.
Let's start with the characters I'm using. My general is a warlord on a war litter, talisman of preservation for a 4-up ward save. Dwarfbane weapon gives him +1 strength, armor piercing, and reroll failed to wound against dwarves. Armor-wise, he has warpstone armor that reflects a strength 4 hit back at the attacker for each successful save that it gets, and with a shield on a war litter, he ends up with a 2+ armor save. The Grey Seer with a power scroll, very useful with the Skaven, cuts the casting cost in half of one spell, so if you roll low number of power dice, you can still have an effective magic phase. The Plague Priest, level 1 on a Plague Furnace, he's got a flail and a Dispel Scroll. My Warlock Engineer is also level 1. He's got a Warp Energy Condenser, which generates an extra power die on a 5 or a 6, and it gives him 2 bonus hits when casting Warp Lightning. He also carries a Doom Rocket because they're awesome. Then there's the Chieftain BSB. He's got Skaven Brew, which gives the unit a random buff at the start of the game. It can be Hatred, Frenzy, or an Enhanced Frenzy, where you get +2 attacks, but you take d6 worth of wounds each turn. It's not Death Frenzy, since you take 2 wounds at the end of compulsory movement instead of at the end of your turn, like you do with Death Frenzy. As for my units, I've got a 45 block of Slaves, bus formation, always, deny as many attacks as you can. Then we've got the Storm Vermin, 36 with full command, and I give them the Razor Standard to help them get through heavy armor. I've got a block of 33 Clan Rats, full command, which is a quasi-bunker. I can have the Warlord run with the Storm Vermin if they're going to go up against a unit that has a tough character in it, or keep the Warlord with the Clan Rats to take out a lower-end infantry block. Then there's the Plague Monks with their Plague Furnace, and the Plague Banner, which lets them reroll misses and failed wounds for a single round of combat. Sounds better than it is in some cases. And a pack of 7 Rat Ogres with a Packmaster. Rat Ogres, like any monstrous infantry, are an ideal flanking unit, because even if your opponent only has 2 ranks, since you can attack on the diagonal, you'll be able to get all of your attacks from a 3-wide formation. That's the list. Seems weird for me, because I'm used to having shooting, but here it goes. Game 1 is a preview match with a couple of lists we were thinking of taking to the tournament. We had a non-biased third party set up the terrain for us. Terrain is very important in 8th edition. It's one of the graphic equalizers when it comes to the popular horde tactics. The building at the top we decided was impassable terrain for this game. The upper right forest is a venom thicket, the one at the bottom is a wild wood, the marsh is an earthblood mire, and there's a ghost fence running up the middle. We roll for scenario and get battle for the pass. I win the board edge and take the bottom. I'm still going to go through deployment for each unit. I wish I had taken individual pictures, but I wasn't thinking that far ahead at the time. Deployment's a big part of the game, and I don't think people emphasize it enough. I start with my Clan Rats in the center. I'm not playing my strengths yet, as I have a little bit of variety on how I play this unit. He puts down a Mangler Squig, buying some time to see what I do. I put down my Storm Vermin, Horde Formation, and he places his 40 block of Savage Orcs, which was a great opportunity for me since this was his hardest hitting unit. Unfortunately, I thought my Plague Monks could handle it. In retrospect, if I'd put my Slaves down in that spot, it would have been a lot better. He puts down another Mangler Squig. I put my Slaves in the swamp. They're taking baths or something. Then 40 Orcs with 2 hand weapons, and should have mentioned the Savage Orcs also have 2 hand weapons. I put my Rat Ogres down, far right. He does his Doom Diver, upper right. Then I place my characters. The Plague Priest on the Plague Furnace. My BSB goes on the far right of the Storm Vermin. My Engineer goes with the Slaves in case they have problems, and I put my Warlord and my Grey Seer in with my Clan Rats. He puts down 10 Trolls across from the Rat Ogres. Then he's got a Goblin Wolf Chariot that goes behind the building. Then he does his characters. He's got a Savage Orc Great Bray Shaman that goes with the Savage Orcs, a War Boss and BSB that go with the Orc Boys, and a level 1 Knight Goblin Shaman that goes behind the building, not in a unit. Neither of us have any scouts, so spells. My Engineer takes Warp Lightning, Plague Priest gets Pestilent Breath, and the Grey Seer gets Scorch, Wither, Plague, and the dreaded 13th. Couldn't be happier with that list, but he gets some good rolls as well. Night Goblin gets Sneaky Stabbin', and the Savage Orc Shaman gets Hand of Gork, Foot of Gork, Here We Go, and Edbutt. The Savage Orc Shaman also has the Lucky Shrunken Head, so the Savage Orcs end up with a 5+ ward save. I win the first turn roll. Other start of game elements, my Grey Seer gets 3 Warpstone tokens, and my Storm Vermin drink the Skaven Brew and get the Super Frenzy. Game begins and there's no charging, so the Storm Vermin start out losing 6 guys. I move my lineup, and this is where I realize with my Warlord and my command units taking up the first rank of the Clan Rats, my Grey Seer won't have line of sight for his spells. I know that a Damsel in the Bretonnian army can cast from the 2nd rank, but I think that's an army-specific rule, so I'm not sure if I can do that here, so I do a swift reform and go 6 wide to get the Grey Seer in the front, and do a small walk forward. Some of the Clan Rats end up in the swamp and take dangerous terrain, but they're okay. For magic, I roll Snake Eyes. This is why I take the Power Scroll. The Grey Seer eats 2 Warpstone tokens and uses the Power Scroll for the dreaded 13th. I roll a 1 for one of the tokens and end up taking a wound on the Grey Seer, but the spell goes off and he uses his Dispel Scroll on it. I take that as a big success to get his Dispel Scroll used when I roll Snake Eyes, but I forget to use my Doom Rocket and it costs me. For his turn, he moves the Mangler Squigs out. The Troll just takes a step forward. Orc Boys march out of the forest and lose 3 to dangerous terrain, and the Savage Orcs actually take a step back. Knowing that the Nasty Frenzy is going to eat my Storm Vermin each turn, he'll delay combat if he can. For magic, he gets 8, I get 7. He uses 4 for Edbutt and gets Irresistible Force. Each caster on my side takes a Strength 4 hit with D3 multiple wounds. Not good for me since my Grey Seer already lost a wound from smoking his Warpstones. The Plague Priest takes a hit, it misses the Grey Seer, but it kills off the Engineer. Bye-bye Doom Rocket. He loses the spell in the miscast, but that's all. But at least that guy can't cast anything else. He uses the other dice to try Sneaky Stabbin', but I use all my dice to dispel. Shooting, the Doom Diver shoots for the Weekend Storm Vermin, but it drifts onto the Clan Rats and gets 4. On to turn 2. The Storm Vermin restrain because I don't want them to be pelted with the Mangler Squig, but 4 more die to Fun Frenzy, so I'm already down 10. I move everyone up, even out the battle line. I really want to get rid of the Mangler Squig and run in front of the Storm Vermin, but with my Engineer gone, I'm realizing that there isn't much of a backup plan with this army build, or any at all, really. Magic gives me 9 against 6. I use 4 dice for Plague on the Orc Boys. He knows I've got 5 dice and a Warpstone token left, so he lets the spell go. Plague makes every model in the unit take a toughness test, and if they fail, they take a wound, no armor save. It kills off 10 Orc Boys, then we roll to see if it spreads to another unit within 12 inches. It does. I put it on the Savage Orcs, and it takes out 15. Not a bad piece of work for 4 power dice. I've got 5 left, and I use the last Warpstone token for dreaded 13th on the Orc Boys. Probably should have targeted the Savage Orcs instead, but maybe I didn't have line of sight from what I could see. I end up rolling 30 on 6 dice after my 4+, but I don't get double 6s. He rolls 6 for 21, no double 6s either. Spell turns 46 models into Clan Rats, and I roll a 9. Not the best, but still that's 34 guys dead this round. Orc Boys pass their panic check. Savage Orcs are frenzied, so they don't care. Over to his turn, the Mangler Squigs shoot for the gap between the Storm Vermin and the Clan Rats. One of them makes it, so it ends up damaging both of my units. I lose 5 Clan Rats and 9 Storm Vermin. They're in bad shape, but I still think they've got a good shot against the Orc Boys, who have now reformed and gone 5 wide. The Savage Orcs back up again, and the Trolls do a little step forward, but they don't remain there long. Magic gives him 7 against 5. He uses 6 dice for Hand of Gork on the Trolls, irresistible, moves them over to the Rat Ogre's flank. I'm thinking the Rat Ogres are pretty much toast at this point. If I reform to face them, it's just going to get obliterated, so oh well. The miscast wounds all friendly casters. The Savage Orc Shaman saves it, but the Night Goblin takes a wound and he loses his last power die. Shooting, Doom Diver at the Storm Vermin again, gets 1. Turn 3, I have the Storm Vermin restrain again, because if I wheel enough to miss the building, I end up just clipping the Mangler Squigs. I can't charge. Luckily, I only lose 1 to Super Frenzy Dance time this round. The Clan Rats inch forward and suck up the Mangler Squig, losing 9 guys. They pass their panic, though. I run the rat ogres as far forward as I can, but they still aren't out of the trolls' forward arc. So I do a swift reform with the slaves and move them at the trolls. They take some dangerous terrain, but none of them die, but they're still just short of blocking the trolls from being able to make their wheel if they charge the rat ogres. So much for that idea. I move the storm vermin up and angle them towards the orc boys, and I remember thinking to myself, I've got it all worked out because I moved my plague monks forward so the savage orcs won't be able to fit in the gap to reach the storm vermin. That's when I get distracted by moving the rat ogres and the slaves. Then I come back to the left side and thought to myself, he's just going to back up again with the savage orcs, so I'll go ahead and angle my plague monks so I'll be able to move to the right next turn if he does that. Swift move. Magic is 9 versus 6. I use 3 dice for plague on the orc boys because I'm not in range of the savage orcs. He uses all 6 dice to dispel. Then I use 6 for the dreaded 13th, but the spell fails. On to his turn, and here comes the charge of the trolls, but he has to make a stupidity test, and he's too far away from the general. They fail and walk forward. I'm super happy for about 5 seconds, then the savage orcs charge the flank of the storm vermin. Mangler Squig goes through the swamp, but it's okay. The Night Goblin goes into the forest, but it's not okay. It actually dies. Orc boys reform and back up as the chariot pulls alongside. Magic is 7 versus 6. 3 dice for Here We Go. I use 3 dice to dispel and get Irresistible Force, and he uses 4 remaining for Hand of Gork, but it fails. Doomdiver misfires this round and can't shoot. Combat. Storm Vermin do 2 wounds, Savage Orcs do 5. I run a whopping 4 inches and get cut down by the Savage Orcs, but they only run 5, helping me out a lot by not hitting my clan rats. So, turn 4, the Rat Ogres charge the Orc boys, who flee but only roll 3 inches, and the Rat Ogres catch them. Yay for long legs. The Slaves charge the Trolls, which is a silly move on my part. It means the Slaves are in combat 1 round sooner, and it moves them further away from my general. I could have moved them 2 inches forward, still blocked the Trolls, and redirected them from flank charging the Clan Rats. Another act of brilliance on my part. Magic phase, pointless. The only thing I could have tried was Pestilent Breath, and he had 6 dice to dispel. I'd have to throw 6 power dice and go for Irresistible Force, but I didn't want to risk the backlash, so on to combat. Slaves do a wound to the Trolls that gets saved. They kill 11, but the Slaves stay steadfast. Uber combat, Plague Furnace gets 5 impact wounds, 3 get saved. Enshrouded by Fog Effect makes both units suffer a d6 worth of toughness tests, but mine only fail on a 6. So naturally, 2 Plague Monks die, and the Orcs are fine. Plague Priest hits the Savage Orc Great Shaman for 1. Savage Orc Shaman hits the Priest for 2. It's dead. Plague Monks use their Plague Banner and have 42 attacks and get 3 wounds. Savage Orcs get 14. Wrecker Attack gets 4 more for the Plague Monks, but they still lose the combat by 4. They're unbreakable, but they lose their frenzy. I was a bit flabbergasted by that result. That's a big realization of what those guys cannot do. Orcs' turn. Chariot charges the Rat Ogres. Mangler Squigs cut through the Slaves and kill 10. Magic is 7 versus 5. 6 dice for Here We Go that gets Dispel Scrolled, and 1 die for Foot of Gork that fails. Doomdiver drifts 10 inches, doesn't hit anything. Back in combat, the Slaves do another wound that gets saved. Trolls kill 12. With the extra 10 from the wounds from the Mangler Squig, the Slaves only have 2 complete ranks, and the Trolls have 2, so no steadfast. Slaves explode and actually do a wound that doesn't get saved. Upper combat, the Chariot causes 4 wounds in impact hits. Rat Ogres do 3 to kill it off, and I reform back towards the battle. In the Uber combat, Fog Effects get 1 Plague Monk and 1 Orc. Plague Monks do 1 wound. Savage Orcs aim for the Plague Furnace this time around. They know they're going to win the combat, so they might as well try to get rid of that thing so the Plague Monks won't be unbreakable. Alas, they're only able to do 3 wounds to it and 5 to the Plague Monks. On turn 5, Rat Ogres try to charge the Savage Orcs but fail. The Clan Rats charge and make it only because it's technically impossible for them to fail. He's down to only a few guys left. I know he's going to target my Clan Rats as much as he can to help him out in combat resolution, but if he does, I'm hoping the Plague Furnace will survive and get some kills with the Wrecker Attack. Also, with my Warlord in there, he can't get as many attacks against the Clan Rats. I'm just hoping enough Clan Rats survive so that he's not steadfast anymore. Magic is 7 versus 5. I use 3 for Scorch on the trolls. I get a total of 17 from the casting cost. He uses 5 to dispel, but only gets 16. The spell only does 3 wounds, but there's an auto panic check, and they fail and run 2 inches. I use 4 more dice for Plague on the trolls for 2 wounds. I wasn't about to cast that into combat and fried 2 of my own units. For combat, my Clan Rat champion challenges a Savage Orc champion, accepts, he wins, I lose. Fog Effect kills 1 Plague Monk and 1 Savage Orc. Warlord does 1 wound to the Savage Orcs, and the War Leader does 1 wound. Clan Rats do 2, and the Plague Monks do 2 as well. His Savage Orc Shaman is able to do 2 wounds to my Grey Seer and kill it. Oh well, he's served his purpose. They'll sing songs about him, something short, a couple of choruses and a refrain. Savage Orcs only managed to take out 1 Clan Rat, got lucky on the rolls. Then the Wrecker did 5 more, so only the unit champion and the shaman were left. They run, I pursue with both my units and catch them. Bottom of 5, the trolls rally, we roll to see which way the Mangler Squig goes, but it's off to La La Land, so we call it done. And there it is. Skaven win their preview game.
So that's the first game. Even though it's a win, it's still very dicey in my opinion. I feel just not right about not having any shooting. If you're interested in seeing how the army list holds up, go ahead and check out our first video from the tournament. You can also check us out at Vidhammer Fantasy on our YouTube channel. Do us a favor and subscribe, like the video if you thought this format was worth continuing with. Send us a comment, because everybody likes to comment. And as always, keep fighting.